Today on BRR Media, we're speaking with Mark Lindfield. He's a special counsel at DibbsBarker here in Sydney. Thanks for speaking with us, Mark.
Great to speak with you.
Mark, the insurance industry is bracing for major changes, with the government announcing that it will impose the so-called unfair contract terms legislation on general insurance contracts issued to consumers. Were you surprised by this move?
No, not really. I think it was inevitable. A few years ago there was a review into insurance contracts generally, and the panel did actually look at the question of whether or not there should be a regime around unfair contract terms in insurance contracts. They left it for the time being, and what they said was, let's look at that when there's a general review of consumer laws. Now, a few years later, we have the general Australian consumer law coming in, the drafts are circulated and so forth, but there's nothing said in relation to insurance, and my own feeling is it was an omission, because what you see in the Australian consumer law is there's no exception for insurance contracts, but the Insurance Contracts Act, a separate bit of legislation, says that any other consumer law that affects the terms of unfair contracts won't have any effect in relation to insurance. So insurance is effectively carved out by operation of legislation that was already there. So consumer groups become aware of this, they lobby the government, the insurance industry responds and says, look, we're already sufficiently regulated. There's enough protection there already for consumers, so why do it? Nevertheless, what we have in the meantime is intervening events like the Queensland floods. We have consumers complaining about how insurers have acted and so forth. So there's real pressure on the government to do something about it, or to be seen to be doing something about it. So they say, yes, we'll have a look at insurance contracts generally. We will look at expanding the consumer law, so that does apply to insurance contracts generally, and that's what we have now. So at the end of last year, just before Christmas, we have an announcement by the government, no legislation yet, but an announcement saying that they will expand the consumer law so that it will apply to insurance contracts. Quite how it works, we don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. But it's not really a surprising move, an inevitable move, I think.
Well, you say that we don't know exactly how it will work. Do you have any hunches as to how the government will actually implement this thing, how the regime might take shape?
Yes, I think it will be similar to what we have already in relation to the Australian consumer law and its provisions around unfair contracts. So we can get some guidance from that. But there are some key questions. We know that it will apply to consumer contracts. So we're talking about contracts that are acquired for personal, domestic and household use, so like your home and motor policies, that type of thing. We know that it will apply to standard form contracts. What do we mean by that? It means a contract where you don't get a chance to negotiate the terms of the insurance with your insurer. And that would be the case, I suspect, for most people who go and buy home and motor policies over the phone, for example. So those are the sort of contracts that we're talking about. How it works, we don't know. What we do know is there'll be an extra level of regulation for insurers to comply with, and importantly, insurers will now be answerable to ASIC in relation to any breaches of unfair terms in insurance contracts. So it has quite some far-reaching consequences for general insurers that they haven't had to deal with up to now.
Well, just finally, what are the next steps and what should insurers do now to prepare themselves?
I think start thinking about which ones of their contracts are standard form contracts likely to be caught by this. We don't have the detail yet, but the government has said, now that we're 8 months out from an election, or fewer now, that it's going to introduce a raft of legislation during the current term. Whether or not this legislation makes it in, we'll wait and see, but it's possible. So we could see something soon. We won't, I don't think, have any commencement for a while. There's usually a transition period for insurers to get used to this, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't start looking now, thinking about which contracts will be affected and what they might do to mitigate against the effects of claims of unfair contract terms.
Well, Mark, thank you for your insights.
Welcome.